my wife wanted to be closer to her family. So we were out in the middle of nowhere for this, and our family lived in Sacramento, and she kept talking about how she was homesick a little bit and she wanted to be closer to them. So I went to Sacramento and took out a map and did like a 40-mile radius of where her parents live and looked at every horse facility, stables, ranch within a 40-mile radius that was underutilized or dilapidated. And I started building a business plan for every single one of them on how they could be more profitable.
Hello, and welcome to the new Mission Career Transition Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Caprellian, and I'm joined by my co-host and sister, Alexandra Caprellian. We interview service members that transition to new careers and DoD and civilian HR professionals to provide you with lessons learned that will help you transition with confidence. Our guest today is Zachary Leyden. He's an Army veteran, and he's a business owner and an entrepreneur located in the San Francisco Bay Area. He found a way to take horsemanship to the next level and scale massively. In this episode, we're going to talk about what it means to start small and grow into something pretty big, what it means to give back to the veterans and community the way that he does, and we're going to get some TTPs on entrepreneurship from somebody who admittedly has fallen and failed and risen again and is now crushing it. I got excited. I got pumped up talking to this soldier, and I promise you, stay tuned because you're going to get pumped up too. Zachary Leyden, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, glad to be here.
Hello.
I'm really excited about this one. Zachary is the founder and chief revenue officer of Ocean View Stables in the San Francisco Bay Area. That's where Sis and I hail from. That's hometown area. Mm-hmm. We're talking to a prior soldier that's going to let us in on his journey through entrepreneurship and how he founded a business located in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I'm excited. I mean, I'm going to get flashbacks of growing up. But to start off, Zachary, and get everybody oriented, where did you grow up and how did you find yourself joining the Army?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Sacramento area out of Roseville, and my family is from Montana, specifically Butte, Montana. And all throughout school, I wanted to join the military. I wanted to be infantry. Some would say that was low-hanging fruit. I wasn't aiming high, but I just had this idea that was where, the true men, the true soldiers go. So I really wanted to be that person. I wanted to be a hero, I suppose.
Yeah.
I joined the military when I was 17. I first went to Montana and lived with my grandma for a little bit. And then, left right at 17, a little bit, probably 17 and a half. I was done with school right at 18, or basic training in AIT. Went to a few specialized schools, which were a lot of fun, and got into a special operations unit, long-range surveillance, where, like I said, I wanted to be that hero and go out and be that fighter. And then I found myself in a unit where I sat up on a mountain gathering intelligence to send the real heroes in to do the action. So a little bittersweet.
All right, cool. Well, give us a rundown on when you joined and kind of because some of the chronology sometimes helps when you joined, and then just an overview of your military career.
Yeah, joined in 2008, and I was in long-range surveillance pretty much right off the bat. Typically, there's a process to get in, but they're amping up for a deployment. So they brought in a bunch of privates, and when we first came in, they told us all, you guys aren't going to stay here. We're booting you to 82nd. Don't get too comfortable. And, they threw us through the ringers a few times, and a few of us stuck, and we were able to stay. I ended up being one of them. And ended up going to a lot of cool schools. And, I think that I was too young to appreciate what a cool opportunity it was. And it was later on that I looked back and I was like, damn, I had a really cool experience in the military. I wasn't a part of the big system. I had a small team. My voice and my opinion had a little bit more weight to it than you typically would coming right in. And it set me up to be more successful moving forward because, I felt appreciated and I felt a part of something bigger. And, I got out of the military and joined the reserves and got more of a desk job at that point.
Well, then let's get into the transition beat. Like when did you know that you wanted to end your time in the Army and transition to the civilian life?
I set myself up with goals. And so I hit the goal that I wanted in my first contract in the military. And so, I hit that. So I was like, okay, what's the next thing? And what I thought the next thing was, educate myself, finish school, and then be a professional in the corporate world. And that was what my next goal was. And so I transitioned out after my first contract. And the transition wasn't great. I felt lost without having a team and a high level purpose. And the horses kind of grounded me. So I ended up having an opportunity to work with the horses again. And that was through the transition of coming into the civilian world, finding purpose and something I can do and make a difference in, which was the horses, made all the difference for my transition, at least.
Okay. So you had originally, I'm guessing when you grew up, you had some horsemanship opportunity. I mean, like, what was that like? And then what was it about horsemanship that you saw? Was it not just to keep you grounded? Did you envision some type of business involving it? What was that thought process?
Yeah, when I was younger, there was this girl who liked horses, and I liked the girl. So obviously, I liked horses, and it started with just trying to get closer to this girl, and then I found that the horses brought out the best of me. It grounded me, made me feel present, and even at a young age, I could see that and feel that, and ended up working with the horses a whole lot more than hanging out with that girl, and left for the military after spending a lot of time with the horses. I would muck stalls and do what I can to be around them. And cowboyed a little bit on the weekends and stuff when I was in the military. And then when I got out, it was actually a Vietnam vet who tipped Mustangs, and I got myself in a little bit of trouble and was in a kind of a dark place at the time mentally. And he gave me an opportunity to help him tip the Mustangs because I had a bit of a background with horses. And every day that I went and worked with those horses, my peers and my family, they all said the days I worked with the horses, they could see the difference between that and the days I didn't. Like I became the old Zach again, is what they would say, the happy-go-lucky one instead of the bitter, cranky one.
So you get out of the military, you think you're going to go the corporate route, but tell us about the kind of the origin story of your entrepreneurial equestrian journey.
Well, I was always pretty entrepreneurial, and I started a couple little businesses here and there. And when I was going to school, I always had this thought that like I wanted to be a part of the corporate world and more on the tech side, so computer science type thing. And I wanted to make my own thing and make a difference. And I ended up doing that with the horses eventually. Where I started with the entrepreneurial side of horses, it was more like I found that the horses made me feel good and present and gave me purpose. And so I was kind of at rock bottom. I had no leadership, station. I didn't have anybody who relied on me. So I was in a really good position to go all in on the thing that I really wanted to do, which was work with horses. Like, what's the worst case scenario if I fail? Okay, I go back to school. Like, there's no. I didn't have a lot to lose there because I had a lot of things that could pick me up if I did fail. So I went it all in, and I was looking at it like, what's the first stages of building a business with this? Well, what did I learn in the military? Gather intelligence. So I went and found facilities where people were doing what it is that I wanted to do, and I let them know that I'd be willing to work for free for them, for knowledge, essentially. So I would come in and I would bust my ass, and I would be the best worker that they had, to a point where, you know, they couldn't lose me. I was essential to their team. And then I would be like, okay, I'm leaving if you don't give me more time. And so I kind of leveraged me being an asset to their team to get more information on how the system works. And then I took that and I took what I've learned in the military. I was good at land navigation, and I'm good at hunting, and I know horses very well. So my first business was, I put those together, and I marketed for packing people in for hunting trips. And that had a lot to do with grit and cold calling and trying to get my foot in the door somewhere. And I ended up doing that, and doing well with the hunting trips. One of the biggest issues with that is it's not scalable. If I leave, then the business crumbles. Like, how do I find somebody else who's good at land navigation, and also good at hunting, and also good at tracking, and also good at horses? Like that was such a niche skill set that it was very hard for me to get employees for that. When my wife came into the picture, we ended up coming up with a different plan, which was like luxury pack trips and kids camps, wilderness kids camps. And we had a few horses at the time, and I started calling all of the kids camps and that did like whitewater rafting or hiking trips or overnight hiking trips. Like, they already had some sort of like outdoors element to their kids camp, and I pitched them the idea that, hey, let's have a couple of your counselors and your kids come out on a wilderness pack trip, and that was one of the big things that made my company. And one of the companies that said yes to us, they're like, okay, we'll give you 12 kids, 2 counselors. We'll do this 10 times this summer. Is that something you can do? And I looked at my pack of horses, and I was like, okay, we have 5 horses. We're going to need 15 horses, and it's 2 weeks for the next kids camp that they want to do. Absolutely, I could do that. So I said, you know what, I could do it, all 10 of them, no problem. You just have to give me half up front, so secure your spot here. So they paid for it, which was like, $1,600 per kid. So it was more than enough to help me facilitate buying the horses. Nice. I called my wife. I'm like, hey, in 2 weeks we have our first wilderness kids camp, and we have to buy like 12 horses. Get at it.
All right.
And
if I could just, I hope I don't throw off your mojo here, but
no,
you said something that like I've never heard anybody say, and it was the discussion about is this business scalable? And your response to that question is can anybody else do what it is that I'm doing now? And I never thought about what scalable meant in terms of how do I, and I think you've said this before because we've had a conversation before. How do I put myself out of a job?
Yeah.
And that's
the goal.
Yeah. I just got to say, like, a light bulb went off on. I'm going to add that to the definition of what does it mean to be scalable. I'm sorry. It was just something profound. So go ahead.
That's like my business partner and I right now in this new venture. That's like, ultimately the goal of the job is to hire our jobs away to where we're no longer needed in our own business, which is a very good thing, good problem to have. But you want to hire, to be scalable, you want to hire away the jobs that are bringing in more revenue. Let's say that you, simply put, if you have a lesson program for anything and you can do a lesson, well, then the next thing you want to do is be able to hire somebody who can also do that lesson. Now you can do 2 lessons in the same time period. Eventually you want to hire it to the point where you have people doing the lessons and you are just doing, the back end stuff. And then the next step is to hire away the back end stuff, the support pieces. But you don't ever want to, one of the problems I think a lot of people have is you don't like doing the back end stuff. So you hire away the back end stuff first. Well, now you're stuck doing the thing that brings in the revenue. Now, and you have people working on the back end getting paid, but they're not bringing extra revenue to the business. So it's almost like do the stuff that sucks, continue to wear those hats and train and hire people to be able to bring in more revenue to the business. And then once that is scaled up to a point where you no longer need to be a part of that end, then hire yourself out of the back end stuff and the admin stuff. Because that's not bringing extra revenue. That's just kind of freeing up your time. Does that make sense?
It does.
Mm-hmm.
It does. So kind of like, just to take on a military analogy, you want to go from instructor to master instructor, where you're just supervising the instructors, but also working all the admin in the background, to where you're not running the admin in the background. You got enough business to the point where it just makes sense business wise to hire somebody to take care of the admin, where now you're just kind of
Overseen.
You're overseeing, or you're generating new business opportunity.
Yeah. You're replicating it at another base or something. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow. Awesome. I know we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but I mean, that's essentially where you're starting with, like hunting trail.
Well, I'll jump right back to where I was.
Yeah, go for it.
So we're now having a kids camp opportunity. They gave me an opportunity to run kids camps for the summer. I didn't have enough horses. This was the first time we were going to do it. I bullishly said yes and kind of did a fake it till you make it opportunity, which in reality, looking back on it, if you don't do those, if you can't kind of fake it till you make it and be bullish and hit a little bit ahead of your weight class, you're never going to succeed. Every time that I've made it leaps and bounds, it's because I'm willing to just, start punching above my weight class and kind of not allow it to take me down. So in that situation, I said yes. And then my wife and I had to go find a bunch of horses that are in our, price range, train them to be good enough to have kids on them quickly, because we only had a few weeks. And then I also tried to hire somebody to guide us through this wilderness, because I wasn't, didn't feel like I had the ability yet to take a bunch of kids through the wilderness. So I found somebody who's done it before. Now here's where everything should have gone wrong. And I, again, kept punching and found my way through it. That guide, the day that the kids showed up, he did not.
Oh, jeez.
Of
and
course.
So what would somebody else do? Probably cancel the kids camp. But if I canceled one, they'd probably ask for refunds for the whole thing. Well, I've spent that money on horses. So I looked at the kids. I looked at the counselors that came, and I said, guess what? Here's a map. Here's a protractor, and here's a compass. You guys are going to learn land navigation. And
get a little bit of that Lars in.
Yeah, I made land navigation a part of the skill set that they're going to learn on this kids camp, and it went outstanding. They had no idea that I was figuring it out as we were going along. Like, it seemed like it was a part of the experience, and it went so well that the camp kept working with us, and that was like the first big hit of success for me.
Yeah, that's great. So where do you go from there?
So from there, my wife wanted to be closer to her family. So we were out in the middle of nowhere for this. And our family lived in Sacramento. And she kept talking about how she was homesick a little bit and she wanted to be closer to them. So I went to Sacramento and took out a map and did like a 40-mile radius of where her parents live and looked at every horse facility, stables, ranch within a 40-mile radius that was underutilized or dilapidated. And I started building a business plan for every single one of them on how they could be more profitable. And so then I started knocking on the doors. I said, here's a business plan. I'd like a few minutes of your time. At the end of this, you can just have this, and this is going to help you bring in more revenue. And I did. And the first place I went to, I pitched the idea, and I said, here's what you could do. And at the end of it, I told them, ultimately, if you bring me on and you contract with me, I know I can make all this happen. And you could try on your own, and here it is. Here's the roadmap. Do it. Or you could bring me on, and I can show you that we could all make more money. First place, took my plan and later on used it. Didn't use my company, though. The second place liked the plan, realized that I was an asset and that it would be harder for them to implement all of the pieces that I was planning on implementing. And I had a track record and I could prove that I could do it. So they contracted with me. And it wasn't but a year or two later that I ended up getting the entire facility. It was a 350-acre horse facility in Sacramento. And I put in an RFP for it, and and won. So,
RFP, what does that mean?
oh, request for proposal. So it was a facility owned by the county of Sacramento,
Okay.
and it was so. A congressman actually had control of it before I took it from him. And I was like a 24, 25-year-old kid putting in a bid against for a $16 million horse facility against a congressman. And he has, maybe a team of lawyers putting together his RFP. And my wife and I are sitting in an office putting together by the end of it, we put together a 300-page RFP on everything that we would do in this facility, every stipulation, every, health or safety concern that you could possibly have. We wrote it all up ourselves, and ended up winning the bid on it. So,
man,
jeez, what does your wife do?
She works for us. She's the barn manager of the new facility that we have. At the time, if you think I'm impressive, I think I was 25 at the time. She was like 20 years old, and we won this contract. And then she became the barn manager with 70 horses on the facility, owning over 20 horses of her own, with me, of course. And she's impressive in her own right.
That's badass.
I'm exhausted already.
Hell yeah.
Right now, she's 25 years old and owns a multi-million-dollar horse facility in San Francisco. I'm 32, so I'm not as impressive as her.
No. That's impressive still.
Well, I think, I was going to ask this question later, but I mean, I think it proves the point that if you're married and you're going the entrepreneurial route, it is a husband-wife partnership, and right looks like something, and that something is probably what you have.
With it's a partnership, and it's one of those things where I am such a workaholic and I am so passionate about what I'm doing. I could not have maintained a relationship with anybody but somebody who is also absolutely passionate about the same thing. She is a horse person in her own right. She's been with horses since she was young. She has been training with professionals for a long time. She's, just absolutely amazing with horses.
Man.
And that's what connected us, is we both have this passion for horses. If I married somebody who had no interest in horses, it would never have worked, because I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this passion of mine, and that's why it succeeded. And I've fallen on my face over and over and over again in this business and pulled myself up. And if and you can't do that if you don't have the passion. You really got to find something that you're willing to suffer for, or else you can't make it work.
And certainly it sounds like the two of you are perfectly aligned. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So how do you get from Sacramento to Ocean View Stables in the San Francisco Bay Area?
Yeah. So this is one of those circumstances of falling on your face. So, COVID happened, and, we butted heads with the county, and the county wanted us to shut down. And I asked them politely to show me in the contract where it says that they can shut me down. Since, there's nothing like COVID ever before, there's nothing in a contract like COVID. Now, that being said, I also was within my rights on the front of COVID, because equestrian activities were deemed essential. So what is it that you're trying to shut me down for? I'm an essential business. So anyway, we butt heads there, and it wasn't but 6 months, maybe 8 months later, maybe I pulled off a year of butting heads with them. Then they found a way to pull my contract from me. So we ended up having to figure out a way out of the ranch strategically and quickly. And so at this point, I was traveling all over the nation looking at horse facilities that I could purchase. And while going through this process, I contacted a winery that was underutilized and pitched an idea of turning the winery into a horse ranch winery. And ended up putting together that deal pretty quickly and signing contracts. And after leaving the horse facility in Sacramento, within less than a month, I stood up the new facility, and with less than 3 months was profitable again. And this was a winery horse ranch, the one right before getting to where we're at now. I ran that one for about a little less than 2 years. My wife was pregnant at the time, so I was just trying to hold stability. I didn't like the contract. I didn't like the partners that I was involved with, but I wanted to get my wife through her pregnancy and then the first, year of our baby coming into this world with them feeling a level of security and safety. So as soon as that everything felt good with my family, I started looking for other strategic options and sold my part and got out of the contract there, and was able to come to terms with another really good deal and ended up buying a facility in the Bay Area.
Nice. I'm sorry, I got distracted by my sister who she heard wine and all of a sudden she perked up, you lush.
I was like, wait, wine and horses? Wait a minute.
Okay, but you got...
Yeah, we had a VIP ride where you would go on a trail ride through the forest. It's really beautiful. And then you would end in a wine cave where you'd have a private experience wine tasting in the wine cave. It was great.
Wow. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. We're getting distracted by baby squirrels here.
Sorry. Yeah,
baby squirrels.
Yeah, shiny.
All right. Ocean View Stables. Tell us a little bit about your business now.
So Ocean View Stables is located a few minutes away from the San Francisco Zoo, right on the coast. And it's a horse facility where you can ride down to the beach on guided trail rides from our facility. Military veterans ride for free. By the way, every step of the way, military veterans have been able to ride for free at all of my facilities. That was one thing that I stood true to from the beginning.
Nice.
And where we're at now, you can do lessons, you can do trail rides. We board horses there. We're putting a food truck in the front, which is cowboy cookout. It's going to be barbecue style food. And we're putting pods in the back where you'll have an unobstructed view of the ocean right on the horse facility where you can stay overnight, be a part of our clinics, be a part of our horsemanship school, or just come in and enjoy the horses.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
That is so awesome. For those of you that are maybe listening to this and you're not a Californian, you're not like from Northern California, you're not even from the Bay Area, I'm telling you, the place where you have Ocean View Stables is some of the most gorgeous scenery there is in California. And the thought that you could actually have an equestrian experience on that prime piece of real estate is mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, that should be on, and I hope it is. If it isn't, it should be. It should be on the top 10 things to do if you're going to visit the San Francisco Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is, we're a cold start right now. We bought it less than a year ago. And we didn't even put a sign up. So the facility that we bought was dilapidated. It used to be called Mar Vista Stables, and it used to be a military cavalry facility. And so it has a long history of having horses on it, but it also has a long history of just letting it wither down. It hasn't changed ownership in over 60 years, and it's had month-to-month renters running the horse facility since then. And so nobody's given it the love and care that only an owner would give it. So for the last 6 months, we have been removing and revitalizing and planting landscaping and making this thing really come back to life. So it might not be on the top 10 yet, but when we're finished with this, which we're going to do quickly, we're tackling this project quicker than anybody anticipated. It's going to be a must do in San Francisco, and I guarantee we'll have a waiting list before you know it.
100%. Man, we got to talk more about that. If there's a way I can help with that. I mean, should be one of the top 10 things to do in the San Francisco Bay Area, because there's so much other garbage that is a tourist trap, whereas this is actually something pretty special that you're offering. And thank you for giving it, like, you're letting veterans ride free. I mean, that's amazing.
Without stipulation too. There's no red tape. You show me you in uniform, and that's good enough. Or show me anything that proves that you're in the military, and we don't scrutinize. The one thing that I've pushed back on is dependents are not veterans in this sense, and they will pay to help keep it free for the veterans themselves. Yeah. So. But that being said, no red tape. They can come, they can enjoy the horses, and the horses have been a therapy for me. And I just hope that maybe the veterans that come out, some of them, maybe even just one of them, might get the healing aspect of the horses, and it might change their life. And if that's the case, and I help one person, then we've done a success there. So
That's great, man. I kind of want to transition a little bit because you've got a lot of lessons learned through your experience. And instead of now kind of veering to general guidance you can give to me and you can give to the listeners on just, business acumen and starting your own business and going the entrepreneurial route, I'd like to know, like, what are some of the key challenges that you encountered or that you think a majority of like entrepreneurs are going to encounter, and how do you overcome them? Like, what kind of lessons learned do you have to offer?
yeah, actually, I have a pretty solid understanding of that too. There's steps here that I've found. The first step of entrepreneurship is, educate yourself and get enough education to get in the game. You don't need to be the absolute best to get into the game of entrepreneurship. One of the best things is just get going. If you never get going and you constantly educate yourself, before you know it, you might be a PhD, but your window of getting in is long gone. Or you might have lost the window. Let's say that you see a niche, but you don't feel like you have enough information to get into that niche. And by the time you get in enough information, well, other people have seen the niche and it's already been filled. So getting started, just kind of jump in and get it going. The next thing, once you get going, is you're going to have that imposter syndrome. That you're now doing something. You're like, well, there's people better than you. I'm in the horse industry and I'm doing very well. And I know for damn sure, I guess I can say that, it's a podcast.
You can say anything you want. It's all good.
I know for damn sure that there are people better than me and I aspire to be like them. But there's not a lot of people making more money than me. Like, I know how to do this and I know how to do this well, and I've gotten the business aspect down, but I am a forever learner of the horsemanship ways and becoming a better horsemanship trainer. I want to train horses at a very high level, and I'm not the best, but I'm really good at the business aspect of this. And I know a lot of people that are better trainers than me that are struggling. They're starving artists because they haven't figured out the business side of it. So just because you're not the best right now doesn't mean you can't get going on the business side of it. So then once you get past the imposter syndrome, there's a point where you finally know that and it's all just right there, and you can answer any question and you can get anything done, and it's evident to everybody around you that you are the subject matter expert in this, and that day will come. And the problem with that day is once you know it, and once that imposter syndrome's gone, well, everybody else around you knows it too. And then people are going to try to hire you. And that is another hard struggle to get past. Because if you want to be an entrepreneur, well, you can't go work for somebody else that you've given up on the entrepreneur side if you're going to take that job, And I've had plenty of offers to go run other people's facilities for, while I was eating top ramen and suffering to grow my business, I had an opportunity to get my family a 6-figure lifestyle working for somebody else and running their facility. And it was really, really hard for me to say no to that. But you have to get past that hurdle to get to the next step. And the next step is a true level of success where you've hired away the hats, you've gotten employees in place, and in every employee means that's less money for you. So you have to keep starving and struggling to get that business to the next level. And then when you finally make it to the top, this is the part that really hits, there's the fun is over. Like you hit this level of success, then you realize that the whole climb to the top was the fun part. So then you got to go do it over again.
I hope you didn't copyright that, because I'm gonna summarize it, bulletize it, put it through.
Oh shit!
Some AI.
I should copyright it now.
No, that's good. All right. Well, any general principles on how to grow your business?
Well, with like the horse industry, I don't know. This isn't general. I don't know how to generalize it. When it came to the horses, I didn't have a lot of money when I started, and I had a few horses, and I was strategic. I found one of the people that I mentored under, he had a clever way of getting pasture. So he would knock on doors of places that had dilapidated properties that were overgrown, and he said, "Hey, I'll fix the fence, and I'll eat down your fire danger, and then I'll move the horses off." And he had a basic contract. They would sign it. He'd put the horses on there, and I loved the idea, and I used that, and I was able to grow my herd of horses at first without having, I controlled hundreds of acres of land without owning any of it. And so I guess the moral of that story is, you got to be clever to succeed at the beginning levels. You have to think outside the box. If you try to go the traditional route, like if I tried to just purchase 100 acres of land to get all my horses, fed off the land, I would have failed. But instead, I knocked on doors and I created a portfolio of properties that happily let me trailer my horses over and eat their fire danger down the grass. And then I was able to rotate the horses on all these pastures, and I was able to really cut down the cost of my horses to very little. And that was one of the huge parts that allowed me to grow my herd big enough to be able to make a business out of it.
Wow. That's
awesome.
That's pretty cool. Oh, man, sis, you got a question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I mean, you have a certain level of, lack for a better word, grit. Where did you get this grit from? Like you kept saying, you got to take chances. You got to go all the way. You just got to say yes and then figure it out later. Where do you think you got that? Ethic from?
I got that from the military for sure. In schools, the way that I always got through them is I would look at everything and break it down to the smallest pieces I possibly could. So like if it were a 3-month school, when you first get going, it's like I could do anything for 3 months. And then when things start getting real rough, or 2 months, whatever, and things get rough and hard, and it's like, well, how long is this gap of struggle? I can do anything for 4 hours. I can do anything for an hour. I can do anything for a day. Whatever it is, I just break it down smaller and smaller. If I'm, suffering with a team, it's like, well, okay, but everybody else is suffering too. I can out suffer this person. If this person isn't quitting, I'm not quitting. People pass this every month. I'm not going to be the guy who doesn't. So I could do anything. If that person could do it, I could do it. My fat officer back home did this, and he's overweight. I'm not overweight. What? I could do it then. Just break it down into the simplest forms. Find things that can motivate me in everything. And even when I fall on my face in business, it's the same thing. It's like I fell on my face. It's like, but somebody's done this before. Okay, I got to do it again. That's fine. How many times did Buck Brenneman fail before he made it? Many times. I've read his book. I love him. And he's failed forward over and over and over again. Well, if he can do it, then I can do it. So I just keep trying to put things into perspective on, there is no failure. People succeed. If you want to be a player in this world, you have to fail to learn. So.
Hell yeah.
Isn't that the truth? I did have one other question. So I'd like to say that I actually went to a summer camp with horses many, many years ago when I was a young girl. And I thought it was great, but I don't even know how it started. I don't even know why I joined. Can you give the listeners a little understanding of, what it is if you decide to enroll your child into some sort of horse summer camp? Like what kind of skills will they learn? Things like that.
Sure. I mean, in a time like this where technology is abundant and everywhere, and getting your kid off of technology is kind of a struggle, that's where things like going to a horse camp or a whitewater rafting camp or a hiking, course or something where you're a part of nature is more important than ever, because it's a part of our world that's just not, it's kind of withering away, and people are more adamant to put on their AR goggles and see nature through the lenses rather than in reality. We need to focus on giving our kids some true nature experiences. And horses keep you present in a way that nothing else quite has, for me at least, and for many other people that are in the horse industry. To get a horse to do anything, you have to be there with the horse, and you have to be very clear on what you're asking the horse to do to get it done. So it's like we're giving these kids the opportunity to be present with a horse, to be deliberate on your actions and what you're asking of the animal, and to follow through on getting that horse to come through. Horses work with pressure and release of pressure. And if you don't release at the right time, you're not going to get the right result. And you're also teaching the horse the wrong action if you release at the wrong time. So there's constant reward when you're doing the right thing, and constant readjustment and going after it again and again until you get the right result. One of the things that I like to tell my students is when working with a horse, you've made them a little better or a little worse every time you've worked with them. And if you can't tell me how you've made them better, well, then you've made them worse. And so this makes people think when they get with the horse, what is it exactly that I'm trying to do? And then stick to that and get that through. Because every time I have a student, I ask them, like, what were you trying to do? And did you get the result? No, then the horse has gotten worse. So please go back at it. We won't stop until you get the result that you've come in here to accomplish. And this sets up our students to tackle the world with that same perspective. And if you can imagine a group of people tackling the world with that kind of perspective, those are going to be result-oriented people who aren't going to give up on, slight pressure changes.
Zachary, I've got an 8-year-old. I would willingly put her in the care of one of your courses. Like, that's exactly what I would want for my daughter. And not only that, but she's 8. She's up to that type of task too. Like, and I think she would.
Perfect starting age.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. She would adapt and overcome. All right. We're running a little bit low on time. I just kind of want to ask you a standardized question as we wrap up here. If there are 2 or 3 things that you want listeners to remember as they prepare for their own transition, what are they?
Coming out of the military, you guys are coming into the world with a great opportunity because you can tackle something that you're truly interested in without the fear of not having something to fall back on. I almost suggest using that GI Bill as your safety net, and go into the world and really try to hit the thing that you wanted to hit, and maybe even just leverage that GI Bill to get you to that first step. Take some business classes, have that BAH as a safety net as you start building your business. And, the worst case scenario, if you fall on your face a few times and you quit, you can just, continue to go to school. I would suggest not quitting, because if I fell on my face the first few times and quit, I would not be anywhere. But it's through that perseverance that I've made myself successful in an industry where most people need to have a large fortune, to make a small fortune. So,
yeah, nice.
Yep.
All right. So we've asked a bunch of questions, but we might have missed 1 or 2. Maybe our listeners want to get in touch with you. How can they get in touch with you and ask questions, or where can they follow your content?
Yeah, you can go to oceanviewstables.com, and you'll be able to communicate with us through that. We will have a podcast going up, which is going to be mostly based on horsemanship, and that'll be coming up soon. And then if you want to get a hold of me and ask me questions about entrepreneurship or horsemanship or transitioning, it's Zachary@oceanviewstables.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Outstanding. Hey, I'm going to put all that in the episode notes so you don't have to try and scribble or hit rewind. I'll take care of that. That's great. Zachary, this has been awesome, man. I'm kind of looking for, next time I'm back in the Bay Area, I'd just love to see the business. And I'm so happy to hear a soldier just going out there and crushing it in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is, let's just admit it. It's not an easy place to try and be an entrepreneur, but you're killing it.
Yeah, I would say actually right now is probably the best time to try to be an entrepreneur in San Francisco.
Really?
Because with the decline of large companies, where they're kind of, right now we have almost a what's the word, where protest. We have like a protest of large companies. They're boycotting doing business in San Francisco for one reason or another, and a lot of them are leaving. And now there's just kind of an open door for small businesses to come back in and negotiate good prices on leases, and maybe try to revitalize San Francisco from that small business aspect up.
That's like a MET-T analysis right there. We're exploiting seams and gaps. Seams and gaps.
Exactly.
Zachary, thank you so much for your time. I'm very happy that you took the time to come on. I look forward to you in your future endeavors. I know you got some things in the works, but man, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thank you guys for having me, and I'm looking forward to hearing it and seeing how this turns out.
Thank you so much.
All right, Zachary, I'll be in touch.
All right. I'll keep listening to you guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Bye. And Zachary has left the virtual studio. Sis, thoughts?
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
I think about, when I actually went to a summer horse camp, and it was legit. I mean, you had to learn about the horses. You had to learn about, how to train them, how to ride them, how to direct them. And it was a lot. I remember this one time when I was on a horse and it did not want to do anything I wanted to do. And it went straight back home. And I was crying the entire time thinking, oh my God, this horse was not paying attention to me. And I had to pet rabbits to keep myself sane because they had a whole rabbit farm too. It was a lot. But what I do remember is, it was just the patience that you have to learn too as a kid, but also as just an adult trying to open an entire schooling of kids having to learn that type of, horse training. I mean, it's legit, but it also is, it's very, very rewarding. And I'm super proud that he was able to do something like that. And I think also the fact that he was, I asked him the question about grit because it's true. Not a lot of people have that understanding of just saying yes and then figuring it out later. A lot of people are so hesitant in doing that. And there's no shame in just figuring it out, even if it's half-assed, honestly. I mean, he even said it himself when that one person didn't show up for the trail ride that was supposed to show the kids that day. He figured it out. Nobody knew the difference. And that's because you just got to go with your instinct. And I think a lot of veterans have a lot more instinct than they probably know.
Yeah. Plus, he was operating in an area that he was very passionate about. So even though he kind of made stuff up on the spot, it was spot on because he had the background, he had the experience. And to tie into that too, like this is what's really reassuring. I heard BAMCIS, begin planning, arrange reconnaissance, make reconnaissance, complete the plan, issue the order, and supervise. I heard BAMCIS in everything that he was talking about. I heard about MET-T analysis. He didn't say it, but I heard it. I heard intelligence preparation of the battlefield. He didn't say it, but I heard it. The things that we learned and the things that he learned directly contributed to developing and executing a business plan. It's an operations order. It's a campaign plan. I mean, all this stuff he's doing, he kind of leveraged from his experience, and then he's just scrappy, and I freaking love it. And I'm a Marine, but man, this soldier fired me up. I tell you what, it's awesome. And I think he's crushing it, and it's really great to hear. And he's giving back to the veteran community. So you're visiting the Bay Area. Hey, hit me up if you want tips on what to go check out and what not to check out because they're a tourist trap. But this, ladies and gentlemen, Ocean View Stables, it should be on the top 10 list. It's going to get there because there isn't any other real estate that provides what he's providing people in the Bay on the peninsula. And it's mind-blowing that he's actually, he's able to do it. So that's great. So this wraps up another great conversation. And thank you very much for listening. If you like what you heard, you can support our podcast by giving us a 5-star review or whatever you think we rate on whatever platform you're using. You can also follow the New Mission Career Transition podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or any of the other major podcast applications. You can follow us on Instagram at New Mission CT. That's New Mission Charlie Tango. We would also like to hear your feedback. You can DM us on Instagram, or you could send us an email at our address, newmissionct@gmail.com. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you are preparing for your own transition, well, know that I'm right there with you. So until next time, stay focused.